help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Please like the video and share your thoughts on the video. Your feedback helps make the contents better. Now let's get to the story.
The pen hovered over the signature line, my hand trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer effort it took to keep the smile off my face. "Sign it, James, or I swear to God I'll drag this divorce out for years," Jennifer hissed, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the marble kitchen island I'd custom ordered from Italy. "You'll spend every last dollar on lawyers while I live here rent-free. Your choice." Her attorney, some shark named Davidoff she'd found through her yoga instructor, smirked from across the room. He thought he was watching a man get destroyed. He thought he was witnessing the systematic dismantling of someone who'd been outmaneuvered, outplayed, and outmatched. I signed my name with a flourish. "There," I said, sliding the papers across the counter. "The penthouse is yours, the heirlooms are yours, all of it. Congratulations, Jennifer." The shock on her face was delicious, but I kept my expression neutral, defeated even. I pulled my keys from my pocket, the ones to the penthouse, the parking garage, the private storage unit, and set them gently beside the papers. "I'll have my things out by tonight," I said quietly. I walked out of that penthouse, rode the elevator down 23 floors, and stepped onto the Manhattan street with nothing but my wallet and the phone in my pocket. Behind me, I could hear Jennifer's triumphant laugh echoing through the lobby. She had no idea what she'd just signed. My name is James Paul, and I'm 38 years old. People who know me from the outside see a quiet guy, someone who made his money in commercial real estate investments and property development. I'm the son of immigrants who came to this country with nothing and built a modest fortune through patience, strategy, and understanding that the most important deals are the ones people don't see coming. My father taught me that revenge is a dish best served with legal documentation and a smile. My mother taught me that sometimes the best way to win is to let your opponent think they've already won. And my grandfather, who survived the Cultural Revolution, taught me that the person who loses everything but keeps their dignity and intelligence never truly loses at all. I met Jennifer 4 years ago at a charity gala. She was beautiful, charming, and working as a marketing consultant for luxury brands. She came from old Connecticut money that mostly dried up 2 generations ago, but she still carried herself like royalty. I was stupid enough to mistake her confidence for substance, her poise for character. We got married after a year of dating. No prenup because, she said tearfully, suggesting one would mean I didn't truly love her, didn't truly trust her. And I, like an idiot, drunk on romance and the idea of building a family, agreed. My father didn't speak to me for 3 months after the wedding. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these stories matter. The marriage was good for about 18 months. Then I started noticing things. The way she'd angle her phone away when texting, the sudden interest in evening networking events that ran until midnight, the credit card bills for hotels in the city when she claimed to be visiting her sister in Boston. I'm not a jealous man by nature, but I'm not blind either. I hired a private investigator, a retired NYPD detective named Sarah Kowalski, who came highly recommended. What Sarah found was worse than I had imagined. Jennifer wasn't just having an affair, she was having affairs, plural, and she'd been systematically planning to divorce me and take everything from day one. Sarah found emails dating back to before our wedding, where Jennifer discussed the long game with her friend Monica. She'd deliberately avoided working for the last 2 years, establishing herself as a dependent spouse. She'd been photographing and cataloging every valuable item in our home, getting appraisals, building her case. The penthouse alone was worth $2.5 million. Then there were the family heirlooms, my grandmother's jade collection, my grandfather's antique furniture that had survived being smuggled out of China, my mother's jewelry that she'd passed down to me to give to my future wife. Jennifer wanted it all, and her lawyer had crafted a separation agreement that would give it to her. But here's what Jennifer didn't know. Here's what her shark attorney, for all his Ivy League education and expensive suit, failed to uncover. I didn't own the penthouse, not in the traditional sense. 3 months before I confronted Jennifer about the affairs, before I even let on that I suspected anything, I'd done something very specific. I'd transferred ownership of the penthouse to a trust, a very particular kind of trust that I'd established with my own attorney, Robert Paul, no relation, but someone who'd worked with my family for 20 years. The trust was irrevocable and had very specific beneficiaries, my parents and a charity foundation I'd established for immigrant education. I maintained the right to live there, to use it, but I no longer owned it. On paper, I was essentially a permanent guest in a property held by a legal entity. But the paperwork still listed me as the owner of record for tax purposes. The bills still came in my name. To anyone doing surface-level research, including Jennifer's attorney, it looked like I owned it outright.
So, when Jennifer demanded the penthouse in the divorce settlement, when she had her lawyer draw up papers giving her full ownership of the property at 432 Park Avenue, Unit 2304, she was demanding ownership of something I legally couldn't give her, because I didn't own it. The family heirlooms? I donated them to a museum 6 weeks earlier. The museum had graciously agreed to a 50-year loan back to me for display in my home, which meant they sat in the penthouse, looking like they belonged to me, but legally owned by the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Asian Art Collection. The jade collection alone was worth $400,000, and the museum had been thrilled to accept it. My grandmother's jewelry, the pieces my mother had given me, in a safe deposit box in my parents' name in a bank in Queens. The items in the penthouse were excellent replicas I'd had commissioned for $3,000. When Jennifer signed those papers, when she smugly accepted ownership of assets I'd already moved beyond her reach, she signed a legal document that was essentially worthless. Worse than worthless, it was a confession. I spent that first night in a hotel, a nice one in Midtown. I ordered room service, drank a very expensive whiskey, and waited. Robert had assured me it would take about 12 hours once Jennifer tried to formalize the paperwork. The call came at 9:43 the next morning. "Mr. Paul, this is Gregory Davidoff. I represent—" "I know who you are, Mr. Davidoff," I said pleasantly. "How can I help you?" There was a long pause. "We need to talk about the settlement agreement signed yesterday. The one where my wife took possession of my assets? What about it?" "Mr. Paul, I'm going to be very direct with you. Did you know that the penthouse is held in an irrevocable trust?" "Of course," I said. "I established that trust. Why do you ask?" Another pause, longer this time. I could hear papers rustling, then a woman's voice in the background. Jennifer, starting to sound panicked. "Mr. Paul, you transferred ownership of property in the middle of a marriage to avoid marital asset division. That's fraud. That's—" "Is it?" I interrupted. "Because I established that trust 9 months before I had any indication my marriage was in trouble. I established it as part of my estate planning, which my tax returns clearly show. There was no divorce filing, no separation, no indication of marital discord at the time. I was simply being financially responsible. The heirlooms are owned by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Have been for 2 months. I have the donation receipts and the museum's loan agreement. All legal, all documented, all time-stamped well before yesterday." The silence on the other end of the line was beautiful. "Mr. Davidoff," I continued, "your client signed a document claiming ownership of assets she has no legal right to occupy. Assets I, in fact, had no legal right to transfer to her if I wanted to, because I don't own them. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but doesn't that constitute some kind of fraud, attempting to claim ownership of property through false documentation?" "You son of a—" "Careful, counselor," I said softly. "This call is being recorded. New York is a one-party consent state, and I'm the party consenting. Now, you can either hang up and explain to your client that she just signed a worthless piece of paper, or we can discuss this like professionals." He hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. Jennifer, this time. "James, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight. "I don't think we do, Jennifer. You have what you wanted. The penthouse, the heirlooms, all of it. Congratulations. You know damn well I don't have anything. You tricked me. I gave you exactly what you asked for. You demanded the penthouse. You have legal documentation of your claim to it. The fact that I don't actually own it isn't my problem. You should have done your due diligence. This is illegal. You can't just move assets around to avoid—" "To avoid what?" I asked. "Jennifer, I moved those assets 9 months ago as part of legitimate estate planning. You're the one who had an affair, actually multiple affairs, according to my evidence. You're the one who tried to take everything in a divorce. I just protected my family's legacy, which is exactly what any financial advisor would tell someone to do. The story isn't over yet, but I need you to know something. What Jennifer did to me, she's done to other people. She's a predator who marries for money and manipulates the system. If you think people like this should be held accountable, if you think these stories matter, hit that subscribe button. Let's build a community that believes in justice." The real beauty of what I'd done started to reveal itself over the next few days. Jennifer, confident in her settlement agreement, had already started making plans. She'd invited her boyfriend, some trust fund kid named Bradley, to move into the penthouse. She'd scheduled appointments with auction houses to sell the jade collection. She'd even posted on Instagram about her new chapter and claiming what's mine. Then the letters started arriving. First, from the trust that actually owned the penthouse, informing her that she was trespassing in a property she had no legal right to occupy, and giving her 72 hours to vacate. Second, from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, informing her that she was in possession of museum property and requesting its immediate return.
Third, and this was my favorite, from my attorney Robert, informing her that her signed settlement agreement, in which she claimed ownership of assets she knew or should have known she had no right to, constituted attempted fraud, and we were filing a countersuit for damages, legal fees, and a formal investigation into her financial misconduct. But I wasn't done. See, while Sarah had been investigating Jennifer's affairs, she'd found something else interesting. Jennifer's marketing consulting business, the one she claimed was dormant. It wasn't. She'd been running it the entire time we were married, hiding income in a separate bank account under her maiden name, claiming to the IRS that she had no income, while simultaneously claiming to divorce court that she was a dependent spouse who needed alimony. That's tax fraud. That's perjury. Those are federal crimes. I didn't report her immediately. I waited. Jennifer tried to fight back, of course. She hired a new attorney, then another one when the first one refused to touch the case after reviewing the documentation. She tried to claim I'd coerced her into signing the agreement, but the video footage from the penthouse security system, which I'd helpfully preserved, showed her and her attorney smugly threatening me while I calmly signed the papers. She tried to move back into the penthouse, but building security, following instructions from the trust that owned the unit, had already changed the locks and removed her name from the authorized residence list. She tried to access our joint bank account, only to discover I'd legally separated our finances 6 months earlier, something else I'd done as part of my estate planning that she'd never noticed because she'd never actually paid attention to our financial documents. Every move she made, I was 3 steps ahead. The divorce proceedings became a spectacle. Jennifer's new attorney tried to argue that I'd deliberately deceived her, but the timeline didn't support it. Every action I'd taken had occurred before there was any legal indication of marital problems, and all of it could be legitimately explained as standard financial planning for someone with significant assets. The prenup she'd refused, that would have protected her too, would have guaranteed her a fair settlement. Without it, and with her attempted fraud on record, she was entitled to nothing. The court date was set for a Thursday in October. I arrived early, dressed in a simple suit, looking exactly like what I was, a quiet businessman who'd been wronged. Jennifer arrived 20 minutes late, looking haggard, her third attorney in tow. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Harriet Morrison, read through the case file with increasing disbelief. "Mrs. Paul, did you or did you not sign a settlement agreement claiming ownership of a property located at 432 Park Avenue?" "Yes, but I didn't know." "Did your attorney perform due diligence on the ownership status of said property?" Jennifer's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Your Honor, the property appeared to be owned by Mr. Paul based on incomplete research," Judge Morrison interrupted. "Mrs. Paul, did you know that your husband had established a trust?" "He never told me." "Were you involved in your marital finances? Did you review financial documents, tax returns, estate planning materials?" Jennifer hesitated. "I trusted him to handle those things." "So you were willfully ignorant of your own financial situation, then signed legal documents claiming ownership of assets you'd made no effort to verify you had any right to?" The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison looked at me. "Mr. Paul, when did you establish the trust in question?" "March 15th of last year, Your Honor, 9 months before I filed for divorce." "And the museum donations?" "June of this year, Your Honor, 8 weeks before the separation." "And you have documentation proving these actions were part of legitimate estate planning?" "Yes, Your Honor. Letters from my financial advisor recommending these actions, emails with the museum discussing the donation, tax documents filed appropriately and on time." Judge Morrison sat back in her chair. "Mrs. Paul, I'm dismissing your claims to the penthouse and associated assets. Furthermore, I'm awarding Mr. Paul full reimbursement of legal fees associated with this case. If you attempt to occupy the property at 432 Park Avenue, you will be arrested for trespassing. Do you understand?" Jennifer's face had gone white. "Your Honor, I have nowhere to go. He's taken everything." "You took everything," Judge Morrison corrected. "Or rather, you tried to. Mr. Paul protected his assets legally and appropriately. You attempted to claim ownership of property through fraudulent documentation. The difference is significant. This court finds in favor of the defendant. We're adjourned." I walked out of that courtroom the same way I'd walked out of the penthouse, quietly and with dignity. But this time, I wasn't leaving anything behind. Jennifer tried to talk to me in the hallway. "James, please, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but—" "You made choices, Jennifer. You chose to cheat. You chose to plan this divorce from the beginning. You chose to take everything my family built. Those weren't mistakes, Jennifer. Those were calculated decisions, and now you're dealing with the consequences."
"I'm going to end up with nothing." "You're going to end up exactly where you started," I corrected, "with nothing but your own abilities and whatever remains of your reputation. That seems fair to me." But I still wasn't finished. "Remember that evidence of tax fraud?
I waited exactly 30 days after the divorce was finalized. Then I sent a comprehensive package to the IRS, complete with bank statements, business records, and documentation of Jennifer's hidden income stream. Federal tax investigations move slowly, but they move thoroughly. Jennifer is currently facing an audit that will likely result in significant penalties, potentially criminal charges if the IRS decides to prosecute. Her marketing business has collapsed because her clients, all luxury brands concerned with reputation, want nothing to do with someone facing tax fraud allegations. Bradley, the boyfriend who was supposed to move into the penthouse with her, he disappeared about 15 minutes after she lost everything. Turns out he was more interested in her anticipated settlement than in her personally. Who could have guessed? As for me, I'm doing quite well. The trust that owns the penthouse has graciously allowed me to continue living there since I'm the one who established it and I'm acting as trustee on behalf of my parents and the charity. The family heirlooms are on loan from the museum, displayed beautifully in their original locations. My parents, who hadn't spoken to me much during the marriage because they'd never trusted Jennifer, have welcomed me back into the family fold. My mother actually cried when I told her I'd protected grandfather's furniture and grandmother's jade. "Your grandfather would be proud," she said. "He always said the smartest warriors win before the battle even starts." I've started dating again, casually. I'm in no rush. My therapist, a sharp woman named Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, says I have some trust issues to work through. I think she's probably right. But I'm working on it, and I'm doing it on my own terms. The charity I established, the one that's a beneficiary of the trust, it's thriving. We provide scholarships and support to first-generation immigrant students pursuing careers in business and law. Last year, we helped 32 kids. This year, we're on track to help 50. Every time one of those kids succeeds, every time they graduate or start a business or make something of themselves, I think about Jennifer and her wasted potential, and I feel something that's not quite satisfaction, but close to it. Justice, maybe. Or maybe just the knowledge that while she was busy trying to take everything I had, I was busy building something that actually matters. I saw her a few months ago, by accident, in a coffee shop in the village. She looked tired, older than her 34 years. She saw me too, and for a moment our eyes met. I nodded politely, picked up my coffee, and walked out. I had a meeting with the charity board, a dinner with my parents, and a life that no longer had any room for people who see relationships as transactions and love as leverage. Jennifer signed those papers thinking she was taking everything from me. But you can't take what someone has already given away freely to something bigger than themselves. You can't destroy someone who's already built their foundation on something more solid than money or property. She thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She didn't realize until it was too late that I wasn't playing a game at all. I was protecting my family, honoring their legacy, and making sure that the values they taught me, patience, strategy, and the long view, would outlast any divorce, any betrayal, any temporary loss. The pen that signed those papers set Jennifer free to face the consequences of her own choices, and it set me free to build the life I should have been building all along. My father was right. The most important deals are the ones people don't see coming. And my mother was right too. Sometimes the best way to win is to let your opponent think they've already won, right up until the moment they realize they've lost everything. I sleep well at night in my penthouse that's not quite mine, but kind of is. I sleep well knowing that every family heirloom is safe, that my parents' legacy is protected, that students who remind me of my own family's journey are getting opportunities they wouldn't have otherwise. And Jennifer? I don't know where she sleeps at night, and honestly, I don't care anymore. That's the real victory.
Not the penthouse, not the possessions, not even the legal triumph. The real victory is the moment when someone who tried to destroy you becomes irrelevant to your happiness. When their name no longer triggers anything but a distant memory of a lesson learned. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, methodical, and completely legal. Sometimes it's just a signature on a piece of paper and the patience to let consequences unfold exactly as they should. If this story resonated with you, do me a favor. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I've noticed we have an incredible community here, with so many of you tuning in from the United States, the Philippines, Canada, and especially New York, where this story took place. It means the world to me that these stories are reaching people across different countries and cultures, and I'd love to know where you are. Whether you're listening during your morning commute in Manila, your lunch break in Toronto, your evening wind down in California, or late at night in Brooklyn, your support keeps these stories coming. Hit that like button if you believe in justice served cold and calculated. Subscribe if you want more stories about people who refuse to be victims, and share this with someone who needs to hear that sometimes patience and planning beat anger and revenge every single time. Thank you for being here, no matter where here is for you.